Hi everyone, we're back and we are moving on to chapter 5 of All the Way to the River. And I can't stop thinking about what I want to read next because this is rough. All right. This chapter is a little longer than yesterday. It includes a poem. And the chapter after that is a page and a half, so we'll probably read 2 chapters. Okay. Chapter 5 is entitled, I Belong Here. It is revealing that I have said more about Rhea thus far in this book than I have said about myself. Even though this is technically my book. How very typical of me to have immediately put my focus on the other. You know what this sounds like? This sounds like if an alien came to Earth and was pretending to be human. Like Mork and Mindy, but not funny. This is just my opinion. Let me preface this. This is like what a narcissist does when they're trying to sound like a normal person. Like, oh, it says a lot about me that I've said more about the partner who actually went through the illness and the addiction and died than I've said about myself. That's just like me. So typical of me. I'm always thinking about other people. Yeah, well, if you didn't have this person, you wouldn't have this book. So, no, it doesn't surprise me or seem strange in any way that you would focus more on Rhea than yourself. But, yeah, like, don't just act human, okay? Do you think they know? I'm being so natural right now. Okay. It is my way. It has always been my way to become captivated by other people's charisma and madness and wildness and beauty, to disappear into their stories and become hypnotized by their existence, to become lost in a trance of themness and to forget who I am, what I am, and where I stand. Okay, you know what that sounds like to me? Someone who doesn't actually have a personality but has to be a parasite and jump onto the back and latch in and suck the blood of someone else who actually has some, interesting character traits. It reminds me of this guy that I dated once upon a time who I thought was so cool and so interesting, and he somehow, over the course of the time we spent together, made me feel so plain and boring and ugly and like I just had absolutely nothing to offer. And then thank God he left. But he would like jump back in every once in a while just to be like, hey, listen to any, cool music lately, or read anything interesting, or watched any interesting films lately. And then I realized, oh my God, he was actually stealing my personality while we were together. And he was like taking the books that I've read and the music that I've listened to and the random films I've watched and making them part of his personality, and then going out and selling himself as me, basically. Like, have you watched India Story? No? Well, you should. Meanwhile, it's one of my favorite films. You know what I mean? So this is what this reminds me of. Someone who doesn't really have that much going on, like they're just kind of flat affect, perhaps. Like maybe a psychopath. Just my opinion. Okay, so, in other words, she's telling us she's always been a parasite. My interpretation. Oh my God. I'm like, why am I so afraid of getting sued? Okay. So let me back up and tell you who I am, what I am, and where I stand at this moment in my life. If this were a 12-step meeting in the recovery fellowship that I attended attend. Sorry. Let's try that line again. I'm so worked up. If this were a 12-step meeting in the recovery fellowship that I attend on a regular basis, and if I were speaking about my own addiction, this is how I would begin. Hi, my name is Lizzie, and I'm a sex and love addict. If I wanted to get more specific about the matter, I might add, I'm also a romantic obsessive, a fantasy and adrenaline addict, a world-class enabler, and a blackout codependent. And then I would say, glancing around the room filled with people who might not look like me, but who all act like me, I belong here. Why does this rub me the wrong way? Because I think deep down, I think obviously you don't belong there because maybe you have a personality disorder and you should be in therapy and consider medication. Everyone else in that room is probably trying to get off some stuff and you need to get on. All right. I love those words. I belong here. Those 3 words save my life day after day. I belong here means that I belong here on this planet, where I have seldom felt safe or normal. It means that I belong here in this body, which I have rarely inhabited. Then what do you inhabit? And I know she's trying to say like, oh, I've never taken ownership of my body. Like and I understand that a lot of women feel that way. Heck, I feel like that most days when I'm like, who is this creature in the mirror who's gained 50 pounds over the past 2 years? Like, what? But I'm just annoyed. Okay. And which I have free... I can't even get the next line out because I'm just so pissed off. Okay, let's go back. It means that I belong here in this body, which I have rarely inhabited, and which I have freely given away countless times, along with my heart, my time, my spirit, my home, and my money, to many other people to use for their own purposes. Well, you and everyone else, lady. It means that I belong to whatever divine force went through all the trouble to create me, and that my belonging is not dependent upon my getting it right, whatever that even means. You know what I hate? I hate that, and this is so, it's just insidious, is that people like this will sprinkle just a little bit of truth into all the jargon and all the deception just to kind of keep you like, oh, I belong to whatever divine force went through all the trouble to create me, and that my belonging, and this is the truth, my belonging is not dependent upon getting it right. That is true. That is a truth. I belong here even when I get everything wrong. True. Maybe especially then. Well, I think belonging, I think it's just neutral. You know what I mean? Like you do and that's it. It's not like, oh, now you really belong. You extra belong now. I belong here also means that I belong in my own story. Okay? Even if it sometimes takes me a few chapters to get around to remembering that. Maybe more like, even if it takes a few chapters to get around to even telling me the point, or telling me anything, except how great you are, and how awful Rhea was. Okay. Most of all, though, it means that I belong in any room where addicts are gathered in a circle. This drives me crazy because this is the same thing that I said before about a parasite. It's like I want so much to be interesting and I want so much to be, to be different and to have a story of my own that it's like I belong with the addict, okay? I'm just like an addict, even though, I'm not shooting up. It's like, can you just like carve your own niche? But you know what it is? It's like, in my opinion, someone like this sees someone like Rhea existing and getting attention through, like, sometimes people crave attention, even if it's positive or negative. They just want it. And then if you have narcissistic tendencies and then your partner is a raging addict, and let me tell you, like, an addict is going to take all the attention, just like the bad kid in the family is because it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative attention. It's like when a bad kid does something good, they get so much more praise than the good kid who's always good would for doing that same action, right? Because everything is multiplied, factoring in the crap they're always up to. So if you take someone with narcissistic tendencies and they're with a person, a grown person who is like this, their highs are high, their lows are low, and people are reacting in accordance, then what are they going to do but try to occupy that space? Because they need that attention. Just my opinion. Okay. You can tell me what you think. By the way, thank you for all your comments. Everything has been nutso recently, and I see them. I'm usually in class when I see them, and so I'm just like hitting the thumbs up, and I haven't had a chance to respond yet, but once things slow down a little bit, I will start responding. I do want to engage with you more, but I just love to see your comments. I love that you're engaged. I love to hear your opinions about what we're reading, and oh my gosh, you guys are so smart. I just love it. I just love to read smart, intelligent comments because I'm not a dummy, but I just kind of like blather on, like some people have just very thoughtful things to say, and I'm just in the moment like but so I love that. You're like the balm of Gilead to my soul. Okay. We'll talk more after. Stay with me. Okay. Now, where were we? Yeah, I belong here also means that I belong in my own story, even if that sometimes takes me a few chapters to get around to remembering that. And what she's saying is like, oh, silly me. I just spent 4 chapters talking about Rhea and not myself. Isn't that just like me? Oh gosh. Typical. Most of all, though, it means that I belong in any room where addicts are gathered in a circle, humbly admitting to themselves, to each other, and to the gods of their own understanding that they are powerless over their addictions and that their lives have become unmanageable. There are not a lot of women out there who will publicly admit to being sex and love addicts because it sounds pretty gnarly. In fact, it is gnarly. I won't get into salacious details here, but I will say that my addiction manifests as a sincere yet deeply... Sorry, my throat just gurgled. I just had some Coca-Cola. As a sincere yet deeply misguided belief that somebody outside of myself will miraculously be able to heal me on the inside, thereby making me feel safe, cherished, and whole at last. Girl, like, you need Jesus. Like, I've never read anyone who needs Jesus more than you. In real life terms, this translates as a desperate need to have my existence constantly authenticated and re-authenticated through a romantic partner's touch, eye contact, verbal reassurance, acts of love, or mere physical presence. Have you been to therapy? Just saying. I mean, the thing here is that it's like, a lot of women, and I'm sure a lot of men, I can't speak to men because that's not my experience, but I can speak as a woman, and my experience as a woman is, well, a lot of women feel that way. Maybe not their whole lives, or maybe it's just for a season, but I can understand all those things, believing that someone will be able to heal you. And here's the fact is that love can be very healing. Love from a person who accepts you completely, warts and all, as they say, can give you a level of self-acceptance that maybe you've never experienced before. And so that is a beautiful thing. It is a wonderful thing to be able to look at yourself through the eyes of someone who loves you. And it is a healing thing. So I'm not going to pretend that it's not, because it is. But I'm also not going to, act like it's the only way to achieve self-acceptance and whatever. Okay? But what I'm saying is, I guess sometimes her tone is so condescending to me. It's like, do you know what it's like to long for love and self-acceptance through the person, of a lover? Like, no one else has ever felt this way. And that's what is driving me nuts about this book, is because the whole tone is like, okay, kids, it's kindergarten, and I'm going to explain to you what it's like to be human. All right. How much reassurance is enough for me to finally feel secure? There has never been enough, frankly. There can never be enough. My desperation to be loved is certainly outsized, and it has caused me to act out in ways that are undeniably insane. Yet I suspect that parts of my story may feel familiar to many of my readers, especially my female readers, who, like me, may have been socialized since birth to believe that they did not possess much inherent value, but were I always struggle with this word, estimable, only insofar as they were capable of making themselves attractive enough to be chosen. I'm sorry. I'm pausing too long. It's just, I'm so freaking annoyed at this chapter. It's like, girl, we're not living in 1945. Okay. Failing to succeed in this massively important project of proving yourself worthy of being chosen meant that you were a failure, and that nothing else you ever manifested would have much significance in anyone's eyes. Okay, but boo frickety who, girl, because she was married, and then she stepped outside of her marriage because obviously someone wanted her then, and then she got the eat, pray, love guy. And so there's been plenty of chosenness. How many times do you got to be chosen? How many times do you need? Okay. Or at least that's what endless generations of women across a multitude of cultures have been taught. And that's what I was taught too. Sex has always been the fastest and most direct way for me to feel thoroughly chosen. But what I'm really looking for in my romantic encounters is the love, attention, validation, and approval. Lava, in the parlance of recovery, that other humans can sometimes provide, and without which I have often felt like I would quite literally die. Thus, I have spent my entire life searching for that magical person who will see me and save me. Okay, so you think you need a savior? Okay. Okay, I am not, a Christian who's always like, oh, you need religion. You really need religion bad, but let me tell you, this woman needs it. Real bad. Okay. Whether in the short term or the long term. When my plan for salvation with one person didn't work out, and it never worked out, because obviously you're looking for something deeply spiritual, and no human can fulfill that. That's the problem, is like we have a need as humans to adore something. That's just how it is. And we will find something, whether it's a hobby, whether it's a child that we birth, whether it's a partner. Like, we will find, my cat is yelling outside, I didn't let him in this time, oops. We will find something to adore. Hold on, I gotta let him in 1 second. Okay, he's here and happy. Okay, so we will find something to adore, and let me tell you from personal experience, it works a heck of a lot better if that thing is bigger than yourself. Because anything that you set your heart to fill that space of adoration, other than a higher power, can be taken from you, or can disappoint you, or can let you down. If it's a hobby, or sometimes it's a sport. Like, I've seen guys who are just like hockey. Like, that can be taken from you. You can be stripped of the ability to engage in that, or you know what I mean? Like, it just can be anything. And any person that you set your heart to in that regard, they're going to disappoint you eventually, whether big or small. There's just no way around it. Like, it's just being human. Okay, that's my rant. Okay. Okay, when my plan for salvation with one person didn't work out, and it never worked out, I just went looking for lava with someone else. Well, you're just never going to find it. If you're reading this and thinking to yourself, well, that seems quite normal. Everyone needs love after all. I can assure you that in my case, it is not normal. I'm different. I'm special. Okay, I added that. I am not talking here about the healthy expression of human intimacy. I am talking about a force within me that is both terrified and terrifying, and that has always been completely out of control. I have caused tremendous harm to myself and others through my decades of sex and love addiction. I have inserted myself into other people's relationships. I have broken up families. Okay, here's the thing. Oh, Joey, stop that. It's not just you breaking up a family, baby. Okay? That takes two. But, yeah, good on you for trying to take the credit for it. I have lied to myself and others. I have hurt people whom I promised to cherish. I have crossed boundaries with friends. I have run away from people who cared about me and toward people who didn't. I have cheated on people and allowed myself to be cheated upon. I have tried to buy love with money. I have triangulated, strategized, and manipulated. Still are. I have seduced people and discarded them, just as often as I have been seduced and discarded. I have committed and accepted heartbreaking degradation. I have committed and accepted shameful objectification. I have used other people's bodies as drugs, both sedatives and stimulants. I have treated my own body with terrible disrespect, and I have never been able to stop. The closest thing I've come to suicide is because of my sex. The closest I've ever come to suicide is because of my sex and love addiction, and also the closest I've ever come to murder. That may sound dramatic. Joey's now chomping at his fingernails. So you can hear a little crunch, crunch. That may sound dramatic, but it's incredibly common. People kill themselves and one another over matters of love, obsession, control, betrayal, and jealous rage every day. Okay. I think she's struggling to differentiate between, yes, most murders, I guess, have to do with there's like a few things like love, money, and is there another thing? But I think that they mostly come down to like love and money is what most people end up being murdered about. So, like, yes, statistically, murders that happen oftentimes because of some sort of romantic entanglement gone wrong. But to say that it is incredibly common is an incorrect way to phrase that. Like, oh yeah, haha. Everyone thinks about murdering because of love. Okay. Romantic breakups and divorces are among the primary causes of suicide, homicide, and addiction relapse, and science has now proven that people can literally die of a broken heart. The official medical term, by the way, is tachycardiomyopathy. In such cases, there is often no abnormal. I'm struggling today, my friends. Arterial blockage to be found. In other words, there is nothing wrong with the organ at all. It's just that the small arteries feeding the heart can become physically crushed by the experience of acute grief, and this can lead to a heart attack or death. This condition is 5 times more likely to be seen in women than men, causing me to wonder how many cases of women's cardiac-related deaths are actually caused by brokenheartedness, or perhaps by a long series of emotional disappointments and devastations that wear the body down until the pump finally gives out. If we add to this the astronomical rates at which women are harmed and murdered by their boyfriends and husbands, and how difficult, if not impossible, it is for some women to leave their abusers, I think it's no exaggeration to suggest that sex and love addiction might be one of the leading causes of death for women worldwide. So I take this problem seriously because I believe that sex and love addiction is a matter of life and death. In my case, without a doubt, it always has been. My problem is what's officially called a process addiction, as opposed to substance addiction, which was Rhea's downfall. Process addictions are characterized by extreme compulsivity around certain behaviors: gambling, shopping, hoarding, eating, sex, control, obsession, gaming, skin picking, etc. Put simply, Rhea was addicted to drugs. I am addicted to people. Although I do believe that Rhea was a love addict as well. In fact, many folks in the rooms of recovery surmise that love addiction is at the bottom of all the other addictions. Our famished yearning for love is the great yawning chasm that we keep trying to fill with other things, with drugs, alcohol, food, money, sex, cigarettes, gambling, gaming, success, perfectionism, workaholism, internet addiction, you name it. Of all the human desires, the need to feel loved is the most fundamental. When unmet or perverted at a tender age, that need can warp our brains into making dangerous and even insane decisions for the rest of our lives. From what I now understand, given the latest neurological research, people like me, people with process addictions, have nervous systems that don't work quite right. Many of us, having experienced at a young age what are officially referred to as consistent disruptions of safety, have trouble regulating our own emotions, taking care of ourselves, telling fantasy from reality, understanding the concept of boundaries, knowing whom to trust, and distinguishing our feelings from other people's feelings. As a result, we can end up with an attachment style that is sometimes referred to as disoriented, which describes my romantic history perfectly. Over the years, I have used plenty of alcohol and drugs, both legal and illegal, in order to get numb or high, but not nearly at the level that I have used people. I don't actually need alcohol and drugs to alter my consciousness, because the pharmacy built right into my brain churns out enormous amounts of dopamine as a reward for the experience of sexuality, physical closeness, and emotional arousal, and at a rate that is estimated to be 10 times higher than that of a so-called normal person. How do we know that? Did they test her brain? I just want to know how we know. Like, how do we know that she experiences it at 10 times more? I just want to know. Not saying she doesn't. I just want to know how. Okay. And it's not only dopamine that my brain overproduces when I'm infatuated with someone. It's also adrenaline, oxytocin, serotonin, and... I am struggling with the words today. Norepinephrine. Okay. When combined in a powerful rush, these hormones fill me with an almost godlike sense of euphoria, removing my ability to feel pain or calculate risk, warping my perception of reality, and taking away my desire for sleep, food, and fulfillment of other basic life-supporting needs. Other people might experience pleasure sensations from romance, fantasy, or sex. I get wasted. If that sounds fun, it isn't. I didn't think it sounded fun. Or rather, as with many addictions, it can be fun at first, but then it quickly becomes hell. Because here's how the story always ends up whenever I fall into desire and obsession to this degree. My addict brain becomes increasingly tolerant of these abnormally elevated levels of hormones. I will eventually need to score bigger and bigger hits of reward to experience the same high that I felt in the beginning of the romance encounter. Okay, but that's just... I'm struggling, okay? And I'm not trying to diminish that she's saying that she has this issue, okay? It's almost like a disease. But am I crazy? Or does that not just sound like a normal relationship experience? Like, I'm telling you, me and my boyfriend, we used to stay up on the phone till like 4 a.m. We would fall asleep on the phone. Like, he lived right down the road. We would be out for the evening, and then he would, like, take me home. And then he would get home, and he'd call me. And we'd be on the phone. We'd fall asleep and wake up in the morning, still on the phone when we had to go to work. But we don't do that now. Because, of course we'd have to up the ante to, like, maintain that. That's just normal. It diminishes, like, the good stuff doesn't, like, you know what I'm trying to say. You level out. But I guess her point is that she doesn't want it to level out. Like, she needs to keep it. And my point being that, yes, of course you develop a tolerance. You get to the point where, like, talking on the phone until like 8 a.m. in the morning, the payoff is no longer what it was, you know? And you're like, okay, now I have to sleep. I don't get as excited to talk to you all night as I used to. But thank God, because I mean, I couldn't live like that for the rest of my life. Like, I just want to be on the phone with him all the time. He's all I think about. Me. Okay. Love him to death, but just saying. Okay. But tell me what you think. Okay. Need to score bigger and bigger hits of reward to experience the same high that I felt in the beginning of the romantic encounter. I will do anything to get that release and relief again. Craving sets in, bringing emotional and even physical pain along with it. Soon, I am neglecting my own life as I increasingly fixate upon the person who has become my source. My behavior becomes more dangerous, more desperate, more clinging, more demanding as I insist. Well, it also just sounds like an anxiously attached person, you know, like, speaking as an anxiously attached person myself, like, that's something I struggle with. Anyway, okay. More clinging, more demanding, as I insist that the object of my infatuation keeps stimulating the release of the hormones that my brain is now telling me I need in order to survive. If the person cannot or will not deliver the goods anymore, I can't get my craving satisfied. And when I can't get my craving satisfied, my adrenals will crash. After the crash comes withdrawal. And when I go into withdrawal, I want to die. That part isn't very fun. Like all addicts, then, I have suffered. And I have been the cause of suffering in others. Like all addicts, I have kept secrets. Like all addicts, I have lived a double life. Like all addicts, I have always kept a hidden stash of supply to keep me from jonesing. I hate this. I mean, I understand, okay, and I'm trying not to be too... Oh my gosh, this is a long video, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be too judgmental, and I'm totally failing, but I just hate how she's trying to align herself with the addictions community, and I hate how she's, like, trying to use the terms, like, I'm jonesing. Like, shut up. Okay. In my case, supply would be potential love interests with whom I was constantly flirting, texting, temperature checking, and testing the waters in case I needed them someday. And there is nothing cute or harmless about flirtation when I engage in it. I've heard it said before that drug addicts steal people's money, but love addicts steal people's time, energy, and emotional attention, which is even worse because those thefts hurt people at the level of their heart, at the deepest core of their being. Those thefts leave wounds that may never heal, deep wounds to all involved. Like many addicts, I always suspected there was something wrong with me. I was a full-on romantic obsessive by the time I was in grammar school. I can still tell you the birthday of every boy I had a crush on in second grade. I knew I was out of control by the time I reached high school, when I kept bouncing from boyfriend to boyfriend, from drama to drama, never able to find peace with anyone. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I knew that my friends didn't act the way I acted. My early 20s were an even bigger mess, as I shipwrecked my heart and body upon one rocky shore after another. But I always thought I could get myself under control by using willpower and common sense, or by finding a new partner. And many times over the years, I did pull myself together. I got over it and found someone new, or even better. Many times I believed I had this problem solved, only to discover that I super did not have this problem solved. The line between a problematic behavior and an addiction is a murky one, perhaps even invisible. But a good test as to whether you're an addict or not is to answer these 3 questions as honestly as possible. You ready, gang? 1. Have you ever tried to stop this behavior and you can't? 2. Have you managed to stop at times, but you can't stay stopped? 3. Has your behavior brought consequences to your life that might cause a normal person to say, wow, I'll certainly never do that again, yet you keep doing that thing? I couldn't stop. I couldn't stay stopped. I kept doing that thing. No matter how costly the consequences, I kept acting out. One disastrous encounter after another left me shattered, guilt-ridden, shamed, and exhausted. Lessons kept piling up, but I was never able to act differently, despite being a trustworthy and disciplined person in every other realm of my life. Like all addicts, I have a disease that is progressive. Untreated, it just gets worse. And I know this to be true because the last time I acted out in my sex and love addiction, I was more batshit crazy than I ever have been in my life. And I was nearly 50 years old at the time, with 30 years of therapy and spiritual practices under my belt. Yet I did things for and within that relationship that no sane or emotionally stable person would ever do. And I woke up at the end of that encounter exactly the way another kind of addict might wake up in a motel room somewhere off the highway outside Vegas, wrecked and bewildered, with no memory of how she had gotten there, and not sure where that fresh new tattoo had come from either. Blinking in the blazing sun, wondering where her money went, and asking in devastated confusion, how did that just happen? Or maybe it would be more accurate to ask, how did that just happen again? If you're curious to know how I got this way, how I turned into a sex and love addict, we could sit in a therapist's office and talk about it forever. And indeed, I have sat in a therapist's office talking about it forever, but I will not be sharing any of my most traumatic childhood stories here, because those stories involve other people. People who are still alive, people whom I still care about, and people whom I ultimately regard as blameless, whether or not I still choose to have them in my life. Partially, the reason I don't blame anybody for my problems is because I don't think it's particularly useful to hold others responsible for my fate or for my behaviors. But I also believe that the people who harmed me had no more control over their compulsive actions than I have ever had over mine. And that is nobody's fault. We are all descended from the same confounding human bloodline after all, every one of us born of the same long and tangled lineage of addicts and their enablers, narcissists and their prey. The mentally ill and their beleaguered civilian orderlies, abusers and their apologists, manipulators and martyrs, secrets and secret keepers, suicides and sorrows. Beautiful people, so many of them. Beautiful, talented, extraordinary people who all struggled. Beautiful, talented, extraordinary, and terrified people who were all seeking something outside of themselves that could relieve them from their interior pain. I'm just one of the lucky ones who finally found her way to the rooms of recovery. So why am I talking about all this now? Well, there are a few reasons. For one thing, very few women ever speak out publicly about sex and love addiction, because there's so much shame wrapped up in the subject. Their discretion is understandable. Nobody wants to be judged or scorned. But this level of secrecy has also, I'm afraid, prevented many suffering people from learning about the nature of their addiction or finding out where to seek help. I myself spent many years talking about my ever-cascading relationship insanity in a multitude of therapeutic settings without a single mental health professional ever saying, "Girlfriend, you're a sex and love addict, and guess what? There's a 12-step program for that." How I wish I'd known it sooner. It could have saved me and a lot of other people around me a considerable amount of pain and suffering. But the main reason I'm choosing to be so open about my sex and love addiction is because I'm going to be writing a lot in this book about Rhea's drug addiction and relapse, and I don't want anyone to think I'm speaking about my beloved friend from a place of judgment, contempt, superiority, or distance. What she was, I also am. My addiction may have manifested differently from hers, but we both suffered from the same deep spiritual sickness. But here's the thing. I didn't know it at the time. The whole time I was getting involved with Rhea, becoming her friend, falling in love with her, walking all the way to the river with her, being driven to the edge of madness by her awful relapse into active drug addiction, I didn't know that I was suffering from a dangerous addiction too, which was leading both of our hearts into treacherous territory. I mean, I knew I was plenty messed up in terms of my romantic relationships, but I didn't know I was an addict. And I certainly did not know that over time I would become just as addicted to Rhea as she was to drugs. My addiction doesn't mean I didn't love Rhea. I always loved her, and I always will. My addiction merely means that I needed Rhea at a level that was far beyond healthy. I came to believe, quite literally, that I could not live without Rhea, that a world without Rhea's attention and infinitely calming ministrations was a world not worth enduring. Driven mad by fear and longing, I tried to drain all the love from Rhea into me before she died, as though through some crazy emotional blood transfusion. In doing so, I turned into a vampire, which is what all active addicts eventually become. And the whole time we were together, Rhea didn't know she was an addict either. Meaning she had forgotten. Like all addicts, Rhea had a disease that lied to her, a disease that told her she didn't have a disease. Forgetting that she was powerless over her drug addiction, she slid into a relapse, and then she became a vampire as well. So what you had when Rhea and Liz came together was a pair of untreated addicts on a slow collision course. It is not surprising that everything went sideways and that people got hurt. Yet despite it all, I still insist upon believing that we were both innocent. Absolutely innocent. My view of humanity is that all of us are innocent, or none of us are. Oh, that is such stupid logic. I can't even stand it. All of us are innocent, or none of us are. What kind of nonsense is that? I'm not even gonna try to dissect that one. I just can't. Either all of us or none of us. Sorry, babe. That's not how it works at all. But okay, you do you, I guess. Because nobody wakes up every morning and says, how can I be the most fucked up possible version of myself? How can I cause the greatest amount of harm to myself and others? Perhaps even creating patterns of dysfunction that will impact multitudes of people for generations to come. Okay, however, it's not that or nothing. Perhaps we could all be waking up every morning thinking, how can I be the best possible version of myself today, and how can I serve others? And how can I be the best possible version of myself? Did I already say that? Who knows? My brain is spinning. This is what this book does, and this is what people like this do. They make your brain spin so you can hardly logic your way out of it. Gross. The only thing anyone is ever trying to do is survive their minds, their histories, their dilemmas, their destinies, their days. And everyone struggles and everyone flounders, and everyone deploys their very best coping strategies to relieve themselves of suffering, and we're all doing the best we can. And most of all, as God only knows, everyone belongs here. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Good grief. I think this is the longest yet. And also, because I didn't realize I was so tired or something. Or maybe it's the word salad, but I'm just like, spent so much time in this chapter just like staring and being like, does not compute. Just like, you know, the meme where like she's just staring, there's like math equations all around her. Like, that's how I feel right now. Like, what just happened? We're either all innocent or none of us are. But, you know, she's still just setting it up. She's just setting it up. It's still like the I'm innocent. And also, everything I did, I'm not to be held accountable for because I'm an addict too. And I didn't even know. And my addiction is just the same as Rhea's, even though it's a different kind of addiction. Do you see what's happening? Okay. Then there's a little stick girl doodle. She's got a little dress on. I don't know if I can... Did you see that for like a brief moment? And the caption says, "You are innocent." Poem time. Entitled, "The God of My Understanding." So here we go. This is Elizabeth Gilbert's God. Remember, she's talked about it before. Him, her, it. Not a king, not a judge, not a father, not a mother either, although that comes somewhat closer. Not the word, but not against words. Not a list of commandments, but an expression of extraordinary tenderness. Not a series of laws, but an offering of guidance. Not the silence, but the silence just beyond the silence. Not the breath, but breath adjacent. Not a fact, but a knowing. Fond, humorous, intimate, fluid, impervious to logic. Drawn toward my stillness, contagious in its affection, spacious beyond imagining, unprovable, unmistakable, always pleased to be discovered by me, wanting only for that which will set us all free, wanting only to be here. That's enough for now. I've said too much already. Okay, so this is good. So not a king, not a judge, not a father, not a mother. Okay, so no authority. Perfect. No ability to say that behavior is wrong. Stop it. And you get what you get because you did what you did. But, I mean, also, if not a judge, no mercy either. If not a king, no mercy either. Because on the flip side of you did what you did, so you get what you get, is you did what you did, but you're not getting what you deserve because, you know, mercy. Not a series of laws, but an offering of guidance. Okay, I see. Not a list of commandments, but an expression of extraordinary tenderness. Again, no order by which to live your life. No guidelines to be like, hey, here's how to be not a piece of shit. Not a series of laws. Not the breath, but breath adjacent. You know, not life-giving, but adjacent. What is this? Oh, I'm done. I'm not even going to read that anymore. Okay. All right, so apparently this next little this next little blurb is not so much a chapter as some definitions, okay? So let's just get through this. Good grief, we're going to be an hour before we're out of here. Okay. A few helpful definitions before we continue. Because we're all idiots. Okay. Codependency. Excessive emotional or psychological dependence upon another person. Typically, one who requires an unusual amount of support and attention on account of depression, anxiety, narcissism, mental illness, low self-esteem, trauma, and or addiction. An intense feeling of responsibility for another person's life. The utter abandonment of yourself in order to fixate upon them. The belief that by healing them, you will be healed. The certainty that you will get all the love you have ever required by pouring your love into someone else's heart. Not a medical diagnosis per se, but a maladaptive set of behaviors that springs from a deeply painful, unmet need for love, safety, and approval. A strategy of living that never ever gives the needy person what they need. A time-worn and extremely effective means of avoiding one's own pain. What codependency makes you into? An unhealed wound looking for someone to land on. How you can tell you might be in a codependent relationship. You care more about somebody else's well-being than they do, and or you believe that you cannot function without them, and or you believe that they cannot function without you. I'm just laughing. I'm thinking about when I go to my boyfriend's doctor's appointments with him. But that's because English is not his first language. Okay. The codependence motto. You break it, we fix it. Okay. Who you can be in a codependent relationship with. A lover, a partner, a parent, a child, a sibling, a friend, a boss, an employee, anyone, absolutely anyone. What codependency feels like at first. You complete me, or I will be your hero. What codependency feels like later on. Watching in horror as someone else's life passes before your eyes, wondering in utter bewilderment where your own life went. The anthem of the exhausted codependent. After all I've done for you. How to kill a codependent. Lock them in a round, empty, windowless room and tell them there's someone suffering in the corner who needs their help. Watch them run themselves to death trying to find the person who needs to be rescued. Alternatively, sit them in a chair in the center of a round, empty, windowless room and tell them to wait there until somebody comes to rescue them. Watch them wait there until they die. What a codependent without recovery typically does after leaving a codependent relationship. Goes out and finds another one. Okay, that's like, I didn't mind that at all. That's the only part of this book that I've liked. Okay. The next chapter is very short, and the one after that is pretty short. So tomorrow we'll probably read 2. Oh, man. This was rough. Oh, there's a picture of Rhea. She was very beautiful. Wow. I'll show it to you on the day that we read that chapter. Okay, well, honestly, my brain is mush now. This does this to me every single time. Okay, well, thank you for being here. If you were able to stick it out so long. Sorry for all of my pauses and my confusion and my complete lack of wherewithal. All right, well, we'll be back tomorrow. I think I might have to do it early in the morning, or maybe I'll get a second wind and record later tonight and then post it tomorrow, because I have a ton of things I have to do, and boyfriend's doctor's appointment is tomorrow. No joke. Hilarious. Anyway, so thank you for being here. Thank you for commenting. Please subscribe, hit the bell, keep commenting. I promise I'm going to engage. And if you've gotten this far, this is your test. I want you to comment below. Is anyone interested? Like, what do you use these for? Does anyone like to? Oh, I'm stuttering and stammering. Good grief, get me out of here. Okay. Now I like to listen to people read books as I fall asleep. Okay, that's one of my favorite things. And so I'm kind of thinking in the future, like, this book is going to end eventually, please God, and then we're gonna have to think of what to do next. So we have a few options. I'm thinking of doing the Sarah Ferguson My Story. I would like to do something about the royals, just because I would like a little breath, and it can still be gossipy and juicy, and we can be like, oh, but at the same time, we're not going to be like, Help. Okay. But I'm also wondering, is anyone interested in just like a long reading, to have on while you cook or while you clean or while you, whatever, while you sleep? I'm thinking, what if I took a day, if, when I have a day off, and I just read a book from cover to cover? What do you think? All right, you tell me. All right, thanks everyone. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you here tomorrow. Bye.